Hi everybody, welcome. I am Tiffany with Voices for Independence, Fitness and Activities, and I am here sharing a series with you called Cooking Across America. It's where we visit each state and find one of their most popular dishes and recreate it right in our own homes, and I'll be sharing the recipe with you in the comments below. So we're moving south a little bit today, and we're headed to Tennessee. Tennessee is rich in culture and is well known for its music as well. But it has some wonderful cuisine that comes from Memphis and all across the state. So today we are going to be making the infamous Tennessee peach pudding. So when I looked into this recipe, now I lived right outside Memphis for about 3 years growing up. It's a beautiful area, lots of culture, lots of arts and music and wonderful things to do, and lots of wonderful food. I can honestly say I don't really recall this recipe being that super popular, but as I was researching it, it's one of the oldest and most well-known recipes across Tennessee. With that being said, they're not really sure where the origin of the peach pudding came from. They believe it dates way back when Tennessee used to be part of North Carolina, and when they broke off into their own state and people headed west a little bit into what is now Tennessee, they brought these recipes with them. So I will show you how to create it today. It's super simple, and it's kind of a twist on a peach cobbler, although it's a little more gooey and sweet than the traditional peach cobbler you'd see across the South. So what you're going to need is some either fresh or frozen peaches. They're in season right now, so they are really great and delicious and juicy. What you're going to want to do with your peaches is we're going to peel and dice them, and you're going to need approximately 5 cups if you're using fresh or frozen. And peeling them is super simple. You can use a paring knife or a vegetable peeler as well, and the skin peels off super simply and beautifully. It doesn't tear into your fruit or take big chunks of it off either. So you're just going to peel it all the way around, and then we would just use our regular knife to cut it into slices and then dice it into small pieces. Remember, there is a pit in the middle of your peach, so when you're slicing it, you're going to want to slice around that. So once you peeled and diced all your peaches, you're going to need 5 cups, and then we're going to start on the topping, which I have started for you on the stove top already. So in a peach cobbler, it's more of a crumble topping. In the peach pudding, our topping is more closely related to a simple syrup. So it's definitely a liquid sauce that we're going to be pouring over the top of the dish before we bake. To make the topping, you're going to need 3/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar. We're going to add 3 cups of water, a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and 3 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to cook that on the stove top in a nice size saucepan until it comes to a boil, and then we're going to set it aside. I completed that step this morning, so we'd be ready to go for our demonstration here. And I've also already peeled and chopped, diced up our luscious peaches for this dish. So we have our 5 cup of peaches ready to go, and we're ready to make the batter. So what you're going to need for the rest of the dish is you're going to want to start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees, and this is going to take a little bit of time to bake, but it's going to be so worth it in the end. And for this, what we're going to add next is we're going to mix up, it's almost like a cake batter, and then we're going to throw our peaches into it. So you'll want 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to make it right along the way for you so you can see the process. So we'll get 2 cups of white flour. Again, with this recipe, if you want to use your flour alternatives, it should work out fairly well for you, being that this is not a traditional cake mix. It's more of a coating or batter, so it should work just fine in the oven with the peaches. So we have 2 cups of flour, and now we're going to be adding 1 cup of sugar to that. And I'm using the white granulated sugar. Again, if you want to use a substitute, I feel in this dish it will work out just fine. If you wanted to use a coconut sugar or obviously your other sugar substitutes like stevia or something of that nature. So I add my 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour. We're going to add a little bit of seasoning to this as well, where we're going to add about a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm just going to sprinkle that in. I'm eyeballing it. If you bake a lot, you kind of have an idea about what the 1 teaspoon looks like. If you're uncertain, please use your measuring spoons. We're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. This was a delicious flavor that we also added in the simple syrup for the topping. It must be like the secret ingredient to the peach pudding. We're going to get our whisk out. I set it down, and we're going to whisk our dry ingredients together before we start adding our wet ingredients, and we have to add our baking powder yet. So we are going to be adding about 3 teaspoons of baking powder, because this is definitely, when it's baking, is going to bake, again, like I said, more like a cake consistency, but it's going to be gooey, unlike the peach cobbler, which is mostly fruit. Actually, we're going to add 4 tablespoons. I misread our instructions there. So 4 tablespoons of the baking soda. And I believe we add so much of the baking soda because it is a very wet batter, so we want to make sure we get the proper rise out of the ingredients as it bakes. And then we're going to add our 1 teaspoon of vanilla in, and then we add 1 cup of milk. And once we get all that all mixed together, we'll be adding in our peaches. Make sure that you have a 13 by 9 inch cake pan ready and lightly greased, that's what we'll be using. And this recipe, when you bake it, you're definitely going to want to cover it in foil, and you might want to put a cookie tray under it. I have not made it before, but being so much juice and the topping being a sugar syrup type consistency, if anything should boil over, it could get a tad messy in your oven. So just like when you do a pie, you may want to put a cookie sheet under your baking dish just to protect your oven and to make clean up a little easier. So once we whisk that all together, I'm actually going to get out a spoon and stir it in even better. And then we're going to add our peaches right to this mixture. Let me get as much batter out of that whisk as I can. And we're going to switch utensils here. And then I'll mix this up. Make sure you get all the dry ingredients off the side of your bowl. You don't want that to fall into the baking dish when we go to bake it, because you don't want any dry ingredient not incorporated. It won't taste very good if you get a bite of that after we're done baking. So then we're going to take our 5 cups of peaches. We're going to add that right into our batter. Get those all in there. And like I said, they're in season right now, so they're super sweet and delicious. And it's always great to have some fresh fruit on hand. These are delicious just by themselves. It's surprising to see that Tennessee was making the peach pudding and was infamous for it, when you think Georgia would be doing this. They're the peach state. So make sure you get all those peaches covered in your delicious peach pudding batter. And then we're going to take this and put it right into our 13 by 9 inch cake pan. So we'll get that out. I already have one ready and lightly greased. We're going to set that down. Put that right in there. Make sure you get it all in. Gotta switch hands here, folks. All right. So once it's all in the pan, we are going to evenly spread that out in the bottom of our baking dish. And again, this is going in a 400-degree oven. Make sure you preheat your oven. It's very important. Sometimes it can be an easy step to forget or even skip, but it does make a difference in your baking. You really want that oven up to temperature before you put your cake or other baked good in. And then, lastly, what we're going to do once all our peaches are in the pan, we are going to pour that simple syrup we made over top. Again, this was made with some water, white granulated sugar, and then we had some brown sugar as well, water, and some cinnamon and nutmeg with a little bit of butter. So there you have it. It looks a little soupy right now, but definitely the topping will definitely soak into the cake as it starts to bake and rise, and this will be a super gooey peach pudding with a delicious crunchy topping. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I'll be sharing it in the comments below, and we'll continue to cook our way across America. We hit Tennessee this morning, and we'll be on our way to new adventures this evening. Stay tuned, and I'll see you later. Thanks for joining me.